And today I am drinking on Boom Boom Boom. That is a nice blue glass I've been using, and it's just bourbon in here. And I always have my trusty water. Boom Boom Boom. All right. And today I am joined in the caf by a friend of me of the podcast, Denise. Say hello, Denise.
Hello, that was the perfect word too. How are you?
I am doing extremely well. All right. So today's episode is episode 64. Episode 64 is best friend killing or self defense. We are back on the accused, guilty, or innocent season. Season two. I think there's 3 seasons now. I will say that I am not really impressed with season two. I haven't started season three yet, but since we did season one, we might as well go ahead and do season two. But before we do that, how have you been, Mel?
I've been good. Can't complain.
You haven't been on this podcast in a God knows how
I
long.
know. I know. I'm not sure why I'm here.
All right, all right. So, do you want to set this particular episode up?
No, you can go ahead and set this one up since
All right.
since I gotta set up the next one.
All right, so this is episode 64. Episode 64 is best friend killing or self defense. We start out in Martin County, Kentucky, and the episode started off. It's beginning in December the 6th, 2017. It starts off with a telephone call, like all these episodes always start off with a telephone call. And it is a frantic woman on the line. She's screaming that her husband has been shot. Um, and one thing that I really can't figure out is with 911 dispatchers, why is
Mhm.
it that they think that people are supposed to be calm when they're saying
I know.
someone is shot or they need an
Especially a
ambulance?
family member, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's no
like
way I'm gonna be calm.
yeah, and the whole time the dispatcher was like, "Ma'am, I need you to calm down, ma'am." And I'm like, "Bruh, she just said her husband is shot. Why don't you dispatch a goddamn ambulance there, so that they can assist the wife?" But anyhow, the dispatcher asks the wife, what happened?" The wife is like, "I don't know what happened, but Rodney, Cockeye Steep is her husband, and
Mhm.
his friend, quote unquote, best friend, Woody." She said they've been going up all day shopping for Christmas gifts and things of that nature. And she said that when she came out, she saw her husband on the floor or on the ground. And basically, Woody, the neighbor, who's happened to be the best friend, told her that Rodney would not let him leave and was grabbing him by the throat and he shot him.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And she said she heard them come in into the driveway. So, first of all, obviously, this is around Christmas, right? Because they were going Christmas shopping. They went about an hour away from their city. But before we move to that, a little bit about Martin County. What I want to do is show you all a little something, something. Um, all right. So Martin County is about a population of 11,140 people. You see right there, 44.6% are female. White folks represent 91.3% of the population in Martin County, and Denise people are about 3.5%. All right. So continue. Take us through.
So like, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Um, I think that's how it starts, and then the public defender just gives a little bit more of the story.
And who's the
Um,
public defender?
Brandis Bradley. Um,
Brandis Bradley. Now, before we do that,
mhm. What
have
you
you
gonna
ever
say about
seen
Brandis?
Kim Queens?
No.
Okay, I when I saw this, I really thought that it was her. And hold on, because
Brandis?
yes, I thought
I
it was
think
the
she's
lady.
beautiful. Her eyes are
Yes,
just.
I'm about to show you so you all can see her. That is Brandis.
Oh, I was gonna
Okay,
say, oh my gosh, she looks just like her.
that is Brandis. Okay, that is the
Beautiful.
the public defender. Very pretty eyes. I mean, her makeup
Yes.
was on point. And I love her accent. But the lady who I'm thinking about is a lady on Lifetime. It's called Kim McQueen's, and what she does, she's a coach for people who want to get in pageants. And this is Kim McQueen's, and I think they look like they could be family. Look,
Mm,
don't
I,
they look alike?
I think it's the eyes and the color of the hair, but
No, they look just alike, and they talk alike. You never seen the show?
mm-mm.
Oh yeah, you have to look at it after this. And I guarantee you, um, I guarantee you, you would think that they sound alike, and their mannerisms are very similar. All right, so go ahead. Sorry.
Nothing. So Brandis just gives a little bit more of the story. She said that Rodney, Cockeye, Stepp had been
Mm-hmm.
drinking the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Woody did mention, and that Cockeye had a drinking problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, Cockeye charged towards Woody and pulled him out of the truck by the neck of his shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Both gentlemen were carrying guns at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Woody apparently or seemingly saw Cockeye going for the right front of his pocket, like I guess putting his hand towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And he must have assumed that he was going to take out his gun. And that's when he shot.
All right. So, do you remember the part? There was a cut at the very beginning, I think, where Woody had made a statement about why he shot him, and he said, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, my life or your life, you drag me out the vehicle, you're choking me to death. You would defend yourself by whatever means you can. Remember that?
Yeah.
All right. So part of the reason I brought that up is because part of the problem in this particular episode is that as Brandis, his public defender, what she was experiencing was that when he was telling his story, it was very hard to follow what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because mind you, they are friends. They've both been out all day. And then all of a sudden, the friend is dead, right? Now, um, Brandis kept mentioning that Woody, the shooter, was 70. But in reality, I looked him up. He's not 70. He was 60 something at the time. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
because she
So,
kept stressing the fact that the poor man was 70 years old and he was going to die in prison. I'm like, oh my God, if she says die in prison one more time, like, ma'am,
I mean, because he was charged initially with
I
manslaughter.
get
So
it. I get
he
it.
had
But
to,
she
that,
literally spent the entire episode, every time she would come on camera, she would start with, and he's going to die in prison. And I'm scared he's going to die in prison. I'm like, oh,
I mean, it's her client. She
I know.
feels some kind of way about protecting
I
him
mean, she
be-
did. She did.
because he's old,
But
right?
still.
And I think Woody, excuse me, Cockeye was about 20
20
to 25
years
years younger than him. He was
younger.
like
Yeah.
40 something. Um, um, yeah, so he's about 40 something. He was about 40 something when he was shot and killed.
Hmm.
And actually, they said um, that he was 20 years older. So Woody was about 20 years older than the guy who was his neighbor,
Yeah. Yeah.
the cockeyed guy. All right. So we see what the charges are. The charges is it's manslaughter. That comes with a potential of 10 years in prison if he
Hmm.
was convicted, which is why she kept saying he's going to die in prison.
I
Sorry.
mean, technically, 70, 10 years, it's 80. He still could have been very well alive when he
Mm-mm.
came out of prison.
You didn't see where that man was talking and shaking. He got Parkinson. He probably wasn't going to make it in 10
Oh
years.
my God.
Um, but anyhow, um, so Woody was saying that he and Cockeye had more of a father-son relationship, right?
Yes.
Which I don't know. That kind of bothered me that he kept focusing on their relationship, and I'm like, bro, you fucking killed him. Like,
But I think
if
it was more of a I think it was more of that. We were friends for so many years. He is a relative because it's a second cousin to Woody. So
oh, I
I
didn't know that.
think, yeah, I think his thing of saying that was more of the I didn't intentionally kill him. There must have been a reason for me to do that because he's my friend. I was like a father to him. I wouldn't have just killed him to kill him. I think
Okay,
that's
but
why they kept on saying that.
okay, but did that give you any like? were you like you had sympathy for him because of that?
No,
I'm like, bro, you killed them. First of
I
all,
still, I still
y'all
killed him
why are y'all going Christmas shopping with guns? First of all,
because in the state you did see that in that state of Kentucky they do have they can carry.
yes, but it's still like, bruh, y'all go
Trust
Christmas
me,
shopping.
people that can carry, they're gonna take those guns with them wherever they go for whatever they're going.
You
Christmas
got statistics?
shopping,
You got statistics of that?
I do not, but I'm pretty sure that we could look it up and it will tell
Mm-hmm.
you that people
Uh-huh.
that carry will always carry that with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So so he says that Woody says, like you said, that he saw him going for his gun.
Hmm.
But initially he made it seem like the guy was like shoving him or pulling him out. And the I don't know, the way that I understood the story, which was part of the problem in this particular episode, was that
Yeah.
Woody was very difficult to follow why he feared from his life, right? Because mind you, the whole concept of self-defense is I felt that I had no other option but to react this way, right? And so the thing is that I didn't see where he was in danger for his life. Did you gather that from that? What was
I
your, I mean,
didn't at the beginning, but when they did the reenactment, I could see. I'm not gonna say I could see because I still think that he could have done things differently, but I could see how he would have felt because of his age and his condition that he may have been in danger.
okay. Now, do you remember though what the sticking point was in regards to when the police arrived? What did Woody say to them that made the self-defense concept that I'm fearing for my life kind of falter down? Do you remember?
I have written down because this is another thing that they keep mentioning the fact that he keeps saying that he reacted on instinct.
Right. Because he told, remember, when the police showed up, and remember, this is right after, right? This is right
Hmm.
after the event. So 9 times out of 10, he's going to be more, it's closer in time, right?
Right,
So
right,
his story at that time and what he tells the police is pivotal, right?
right.
Because he doesn't say I feared for my life. He never told the police that. At least that's not what the episode portrayed.
Nope.
What he said, it was instinctual, right? And so what I gather from that is that these are people who carry guns, right? And they carry it for whatever reason. And maybe they go shooting a lot, and so it's just instinct that he pulls it out and shoot him, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that he was in danger of his life, right?
No.
Because why couldn't he push him away, right?
Or punch him, you
Or
know?
punch him? Now, but the thing that I think Brandis did a good job at, I really liked her. Okay,
I liked her too.
let
I
me
think
just
I
say that.
like her. If I lived there, I think she would be awesome to go hang out with. Like she would be so cool.
Yeah. I just it's something about her. Just
Yeah.
I just like the way she just presented herself. Anyway, so y'all need to watch the episode.
She was
Um,
always fly. Like she was
Always
always
put together and like I mean, I don't know if she's like that every time,
you
but
can tell she is.
uh,
Yeah, you can
she
tell
was
she's
well
always like that.
she was well put together. Okay.
Yeah.
But what was I saying? One of the things that she was struggling with was putting the pieces together of what happened, right? Um and so they tried to reenact what occurred, but even in the reenactment, I wasn't convinced that he was in fear for his life. I mean, what did you think about that?
I did, and only because in the reenactment, he is against the truck, right? And sorry, Cockeye, I got to go back to his name just to remember,
Uh huh.
is taller than Woody and is a little bit more built than Woody. So
Uh
the
huh.
way the reenactment shows he's against his truck and
Hmm.
Cockeye is holding him. It is literally grabbing him.
Hmm.
So I don't think that Woody would have said or would have thought I can overpower him because Woody is way smaller. He's has the Parkinson, can hardly, like you said, walk straight. So yeah, he
I
could
didn't
have
say that.
tried.
Did I say that?
You didn't say he couldn't walk straight, but I was thinking when he was in the courtroom. that he kind of fell.
I
So
mean,
that's why I said that.
he could have been playing the part that he was old.
No, no, no,
But
he did. You could tell
you
that
know
his
him?
medical I do not, but you can tell that based on his conditions, it was he's not balanced, He
Mm,
suffers from balance.
okay, so
But I do think that Cockeye was overpowering him. So I don't think that Woody could have punched him, could have done anything that would have made. I mean, we're talking about a drunk man. He was drunk.
okay, stop there. That is
Okay.
the okay. So I think that that matters. I mean, come on. If he was as sloppy drunk as
Hmm.
Woody tried to portray, would he have all of his faculties to be able to overpower Woody? Like he kind of reminded me. He been Cockeye kind of reminded me of that drunk uncle who comes to the barbecue and just falling all over the place, don't know how to stand up and things of that nature, just a fun drunk. And so the image that I got was not that he was an aggressive drunk. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the evidence that eventually comes up that Brandis tries to she indicates that she does not want to put out there, right? But um he didn't it didn't come across to me that he was aggressive. But
I mean, but just I don't know. I've had my personal experiences with drunks of different kind. And if we go back to that piece of evidence that she did not want to bring into the court because it would portray Cockeye in a different, in a good eye, he was good. He was
right.
walking like he wasn't really drunk. I mean, you could tell that he may have been a little tipsy, but he didn't look drunk to me. So if I go based on that video,
Hmm.
he was strong enough to overpower Woody.
Then let's go to the video. So Brandis eventually finds out a Facebook posting
Hmm.
that Cockeye put on his own Facebook the same night of the incident. And in fact, it was right before, it was after they went
Hmm.
Christmas shopping on the route home. They stopped at like a Walmart and Cockeye had a video and he was in the video videoing himself getting, I don't know, soap or toothpaste or something. I
I
don't know
think it
what the
was
hell it was.
toothpaste because he was asking somebody to help him.
Right. And here's the point why I say that I didn't feel like he was aggressive. Because in that video, he was super nice, even to the guy, right? He was super nice. You can tell he was tipsy. You can tell he was in a good mood. And he was on the video saying that he loved his people, he loved his wife. I think he named some other folks who
I
he
think he said
loved.
his son too. Didn't he say
Yeah,
I love his
yeah,
son?
something like that,
Somebody.
right?
Yeah.
And he didn't present himself as one who was being aggressive in that video, right? And what Brandish said was that we can't let this evidence in because he is a happy drunk. We need
Hmm.
to be able to argue that he was aggressive, right? And she knew from that video that if that video would have been shown in the courtroom, that no one would come to the conclusion that he was aggressive, right?
Right.
Um, and if he was so like out of it, the other part that kind of irritated me or made me not believe Woody as much was that remember Woody was saying that he was trying to have a conversation with him about stop drinking.
Hmm.
Remember, right? He was drinking too
I
much, blah
do.
blah blah.
Yep.
And to me, if he didn't say when I had that conversation with him, he got aggressive with me and was yelling or screaming or doing this, that, and the third. So to me, it just didn't mesh with someone who was out of their faculties so much that they are drunk and aggressive. You know what I mean? Because I've been around people who drank a lot
Hmm.
and try to have a conversation about their drinking while they're drunk. It's a catastrophe.
Agree.
But none of the studies, I mean, excuse me, none of the statements that Woody said mesh with someone who was so drunk that they were aggressive, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I think again, I think Woody could have really handled it very differently. And but it happened. I mean, we don't know what happened from the time that they left Walmart to the time that they actually made it to the house.
True. But but we do know, well, true. That yeah, okay. True.
You're trying to bring the other person in.
Yeah. So, but before we
Leave her
do that,
until later.
okay. So before we do that, so then what happens is that they try to do this reenactment. So Brandis takes another, like, I don't know if he's a private investigator or someone, and they go back to the scene with Woody with his car, and Woody attempts to reenact, right?
Right.
But in reality, Woody really didn't reenact.
No, they did it for him.
Exactly.
Because when Brandon said what she said, I was like, oh, okay, Brandon. Like, come on now, girl.
Because it's like, because Woody was basically was like, he was saying, well, I don't know who shot him. And I'm like, bruh,
I
you
don't think he
shot him.
remembered. I think that he remembered bits and pieces. And before you go into the reenactment, right? They do have his wife talking, and that's when the wife. Well, Brandis is the one that mentions. Somebody mentioned he has Parkinson's since
The wife.
2014, and he suffered from memory loss, significant memory loss. But then she said the memory loss started 3 years ago. That's when the killing happened.
And so, what's your point of saying that you think it's coincidental?
Yes, because sir, every time they would ask him to talk about it, it was like he just couldn't remember stuff. He didn't remember taking the gun out because he always says he doesn't remember, pointing it at him or shooting him. Every time they would try to get something out of him, well, I don't know if it was because of that. Well, I don't know if it was. So what do you remember? You remember your daughters are not talking to you because of the incident.
And his neighbors, because
And
he's
his
so
neighbors.
he's so hurt that his neighbors are not talking to him. So are you so okay? So then, why do you believe him? Then, I mean, if you are you saying
I didn't say I believe Woody, but I believe that he felt endangered is what I think. I think again, I don't because they're not very clear as to what starts the argument or what makes Cockeye get so upset to the point that he grabs Woody out of the truck. They don't really talk about that other than Woody trying to talk to him about him drinking. So if I have to visualize it in my head, he probably would frustrate the heck out of me too if I'm drunk and you're constantly in my ear talking to me about my drinking. I don't want to hear that, sir. I'm very happy right now. I'm drunk. Leave me alone. So maybe I would have gotten upset too. But what I do agree with is that he may have felt endangered only because of the reenactment. Because again,
but the
Cockeye was
problem
taller.
but the problem with the okay, so I'm sitting here as a lawyer, but
Mm-hmm.
this ain't legal advice or anything, right? The problem with the reenactment is that it wasn't his reenactment. It
No.
was their reenactment. Their Ben
But they
Brandis
convinced
and
me.
right. And so one of the fine lines, and I'm not saying that they did anything wrong at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? But one of the fine lines as a lawyer, particularly when you represented someone, is sometimes as lawyers we tend to hear things facts and we communicate to the person that we are representing what we think the facts are, but sometimes it crosses the line of telling that person what happened, and then that becomes that person's story, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was the problem of the reenactment. I didn't feel like Woody, at least what we saw, again, this is snippets, right? We only get an hour, but what we saw the investigator and Brandis basically telling him what happened,
It was
and
more
it was
Brandis.
and it wasn't Woody
Yeah.
saying this is what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was
And
her because when the private investigator was putting his elbow because apparently Cockeye, you know, had his elbow on his
allegedly,
neck. So it was
allegedly,
allegedly, yeah, because we don't know. But it was more of Brandis, the one who put the facts together because the guy was just still trying to reenact it. And then when he said that's when he shot, that's when Brandis said, do you want me to say?
yeah. Go ahead.
That's it. That's it. What it?
that yeah, she did. She hyped that up. She was
Yeah.
super excited about that. So yeah, so I don't know. I felt sorry for both individuals, the
Me
victim
too.
and the defendant, right? And the defendant just kind of remind me of this meek and meager type of individual. So I can also, I guess, I'm coming around to the fact I can see why he may have felt in fear.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I just don't feel like the force was reasonable based upon the situation.
I agree. I don't
Um,
think so. Did you mention, or do you want me to mention the findings from the neuropsychologists
yeah, go
on
ahead.
Woody?
Hmm.
Because I mean that could also help explain. And I wasn't clear if the findings are today, when they actually did the recording, or if that also goes back to when it actually happened. But
Hmm.
they did examine him, and the neuropsychologist did say that he has the capacity comparable to a child 9 years of age.
Right.
So that does explain a little as to why he may not remember certain things. Although to me, I am still convinced that it could be selective memory. I'm
Okay.
sorry, that's just my
So
thing,
yeah.
my
So the
opinion.
neuro what is it? The neuro what?
The
What was it?
neuropsychologists.
So basically, what they said that he has a mental ability comparable to
Mhm.
a child, or typically a 9 year old, right? So we have this man who's about 66, 67, 68, somewhere around that. And
70
so
per Brandes.
70, okay. But I looked it up and he's not, he's 60 something. But anyhow, when he went to when this is going on, he was 60 something. But putting that aside, he does have a mental capacity of a 9 year old. Now, that doesn't necessarily explain the memory. To
Mhm.
me, what that explains is his inability to articulate what happened, right? Now,
Right.
for me, that is evidence that I probably would want, and we don't know if that was brought into the trial or not, but that's definitely something that I would want to present to the jury, right? Because I want the jury to understand that you're not dealing with, yes, he's 60 something years old. Yes, he's 20 years older than Cockeye, but understand that his mental ability is that of an individual who's lesser than Cockeye, right? So
Right.
even though he's 20 years older, the way that he thinks, the way that he talks, the way that he puts things together is not consistent with someone who has the full capacity and the mental abilities to understand the situation. So for me, I would want that to be in front of the jury, right? So that they can not only see that this is an older guy, he's meek, he's meager, but he also has an issue, right?
Right.
And then you tack on top of that the fact that he allegedly has Parkinson. His wife says that he has Parkinson and was saying how he can't remember this, that, and the third. And so, yeah. So, from an evidentiary standpoint, that's something that I probably would want the jury to hear because I want
Yeah.
them to sympathize with my client. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, it does. And she really doesn't mention if she was bringing it in. She was more
Right.
of the using that to her, I wouldn't say to her advantage, but to for her to make the determination of, I don't think you should get up there and testify.
So, one thing about that, so let's just be clear. I don't think that she was making the determination on whether or not he can testify. So let me just clear that out because
Mhm.
as lawyers, ethically, particularly when there's a criminal defendant,
Listen,
it
I know you're going to speak on the
is
lawyer side, but the
it
way
is
she was
listen.
speaking to that wife and made the wife say,
No, but okay, but as lawyers, we it's
Mhm.
important for the client to make an informed decision, right?
Agree.
But it is never the lawyer's decision about whether or not a defendant testifies. It's always
Mhm.
the defendant. The defendant always has to make that final call. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to say to my client, as Brandis did, and I think she did it appropriately. I'm paraphrasing, but bruh, you sound a hot ass mess. I,
And she kind of looked at the wife like,
I mean,
you,
you
you,
agree
you
with
need to
me?
help me here.
Yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with her. I think that if he would have went on the stand, that it would be a complete disaster, right?
Mhm.
But you also have to think about what the defense is, right? When you're in a criminal trial, right? And I think we talked about this on some episode before. It's always the prosecutor's job to prove X, Y, and Z, right? The only time that it's a defendant's job to prove something is if they are raising an affirmative defense to what's going on. And that affirmative defense in this stance is self defense. And the
Mhm.
only person who can really tell what happened is Woody, right? Because
Mhm.
of the two there were no other witnesses. So there's no one who would be able to say, oh, I saw Cockeyed and he looked aggressive or he looked like he was going to do X, Y, and Z, right? We don't have that. And so I think not having Woody on testify actually hurt his case a little more as well. Um, because it may have been beneficial for the jury to see, he really didn't mean this. He doesn't remember all the details. That's fine. He can tell why he doesn't remember the details, but he does remember that he was in fear for his life. It was important, I think, for the jury to hear that, and they didn't hear that. They didn't hear that
I
from
don't
him.
know, man. I kind of disagree because of what happens after
What happens after?
the new charges that are brought onto him.
So let's go there. So eventually, the case has been pending for about 3 years, and Brandis becomes aware that the Commonwealth,
Mhm.
which is the state basically, um, apparently there were other charges that were going on simultaneously with this that she was unaware of. And so, what the prosecution wanted to do was that they wanted to consolidate two cases. The um, the manslaughter charge for
Mhm.
10 years that comes with 10 years, but then they added a new charge of wanton endangerment. And you want to tell them what that charge was about?
Well, he had two. He had the resisting arrest
Well,
and
wait,
the 5 counts.
but yeah, the wanton endangerment, though, what was that about? Do you remember?
Um, no.
So the wanton endangerment would bring his potential sentence from 10 years maximum to 35 years maximum. And what happened was is that when the officers came, the sheriffs came to the scene, what happened was is that Woody, right? What the allegations are is that Woody was aggressive
I found it.
and he was essentially resisting arrest.
Hmm.
And in the process of them trying to arrest them, there was some kind of scuffle and it caused one of the sheriffs to break a rib
Right. Or
and
something
be
like that.
something like that. And because of that, it was wanton endangerment to a peace officer, right? Now,
Right.
that not the charge itself, but the facts that went with it is very harmful to his self-defense thing, right?
Yep.
Because then it makes it seem as if he is an aggressor and not one who is defending off being having aggression put onto him. You know what I mean? Like if he was so like, oh my God, this is my friend. I didn't think this was going to happen, but I was
Right.
fearing from his life. Then when the police came, the thing that he should have been doing, I think, is saying, you know, I
I
didn't
did it.
mean this to happen.
Take me in. Yeah.
Exactly. But he, according to the allegations from the sheriff department, he was aggressive. So aggressive that they couldn't wrestle this 65, 66-year-old man down, which, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but
No.
you were talking about Cockeye being bigger, but that refutes that whole theory. Because if he's strong enough, he been Woody is strong
That's
enough
true.
to cause a sheriff to break the rib, then he was strong enough to do something other than shoot this guy to get him off of him.
But we never saw the sheriff, so we don't know. I mean, just because it's a sheriff doesn't mean the sheriff is going to be, bigger, l- uh, fitter, doesn't mean that. We haven't seen the sheriff to see were they the same height? Was
None
he
of that matters.
skinnier? Well,
None of that matters. Why does that
to
matter?
me, it does because Cockeye was way bigger than him.
That
Cockeye
doesn't
was
matter.
literally the same height and the same build as Brandis.
No, that does not matter. It does not matter because
Are
what
you
that
speaking
is
as a lawyer right now, or are you speaking as a human being?
both. Because
No,
if
take the lawyer out. Take
I'm
the
taking the
lawyer
lawyer
out.
out. If I was on the jury and I heard that, I would be like, "Oh no, he wasn't afraid." I mean, why is he
And
wrestling
this is
with
the
the
beauty.
sheriff?
This is the beauty of jury, right? This is why they have different people because you would think that way and I wouldn't. And this is why we will have to go back in the after the jury
Well,
goes
we'll
to
be there all
talk.
day. They will be sequestered us. We'll be there all day and all night, and we'll be there for weeks if we need to. Because I I just think it 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 is inconsistent with its entire story. Okay, The police are there for a reason. The police are there because a guy is on the ground dead, right?
Mhm.
If you if you didn't want this to occur, remember, because all throughout the episode, he kept talking about, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't want this to happen. We were having a good time, blah, blah, blah. But yet you up here wrestling with the sheriff. Why didn't you just take your ass down to the police department and give your statement?
He
You know
could
what I
have
mean?
also, I mean, I don't want to speak for Woody, but I mean, he could have just thought maybe I didn't need to be like arrested the way you arrested me. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God,
Honestly,
P,
I don't know.
please.
But this is the reason though why I say I wouldn't have put him up there, because then if I find out that you resisted arrest, that you were so forceful that you broke this man's rib,
Yeah, I
I
agree
would
with
have
you
been
there.
like, mm-mm.
I agree with you there. All right. So anyhow, so now we have this new charge, and so
Mhm.
we go to a hearing with the judge, right? And Brandis is basically objecting to the fact that the prosecutor is attempting to um, consolidate this into one trial, right? Instead of having two separate trials, right? Um, so what Brandis basically says is, look, the prosecution is inappropriately trying to consolidate this because what they're trying to say is because he had this altercation, quote unquote, with the sheriff department, he has more of a propensity then to be violent and aggressive. And so, therefore, it would defeat his self defense claim, basically, right? And so, therefore, it's prejudicial to my client because if the jury hears this, they're going to automatically assume that he could not have been in fear of his life, right? Now, what was the prosecution's rebuttal to that?
You may have to add more, but one of the things that the prosecutor kept saying is, but what happened to the sheriff happened because of the incident of self-defense, because they were trying to arrest him. And then I can't remember, he says something else, and I can't remember exactly what it is that he said.
So basically, what the prosecution is saying is that yes, they are separate events, right? But the events occurred out of the same transactions, right?
Mhm. That's
And so,
exactly what he said.
because they appeared at the same transaction, there's no way that you can separate the two. And given the fact that Woody is raised in self-defense, part of what his argument is that Cockeye was using his arm and putting these marks on his neck. But the reality is those marks could have came from the scuffle with the sheriff,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And I thought the prosecution did a beautiful job of doing
I
that,
agree. A thousand
right?
percent. I agree.
I, now I think an argument could have been is not more so about that. Brandis, I think, should have or could have, and we don't know if she did or not because again, there's only an hour. But one of the things that should have been argued was the prejudicial effect of why they waited 3 years, right? You waited 3 years to try to consolidate this charge that, by the way, Woody didn't even know the charge was there, allegedly, because Brandis did not know about this charge
Hmm.
until there was this motion to consolidate the two issues, right? And so, as a defendant, how do you properly defend against a case when you don't have enough time and sufficient time to prepare and mount a proper defense against that? And it was, she did use the term cumulative, right? That they're trying to create this cumulative effect of, you know, because you were involved with this one particular situation with the sheriff, and then that would harm and put into the perspective of the jury, right? That, oh, you're fighting the people who are there to help you. If you're fighting the people who are there to help you, then 9 times out of 10, maybe you were the one who were fighting and starting the issues
Hmm.
with Cockeye, right?
Right.
Um, but ultimately, the judge decided, nah, I'm gonna let her in.
Yep.
so, so that was consolidated. All right, and then we pop up, and then there is this all of a sudden there's this new surprise witness, and it's this new surprise witness that causes the prosecution to even change not just manslaughter, but I think they went to intentional
Hmm.
manslaughter because of
Yep.
this witness. And who was this witness?
Kimberly Bowen, a gas station clerk. It looks like they stopped at the gas station, after they stopped at Walmart, minutes away from actually getting to the house. And
Mhm.
Cockeye was inside the gas station and told Kimberly that the guy in the car threatened to kill him or shoot him. I can't remember which term he used.
Mhm.
And so that's the new witness that came as a surprise to everyone because we didn't have no witnesses before.
We didn't, and that changed the charge from just reckless manslaughter
Hmm.
to manslaughter in the first degree. All right, and so let's just while we're here, let's just do this quickly to 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 quickly talk about the difference between them.
Okay.
All right, so his initial charge was manslaughter, reckless manslaughter, basically, right? And so, reckless manslaughter here. This is the Kentucky um, statutes in regards to reckless homicide. Basically, is a person is guilty of reckless homicide when, with recklessness, he causes the death of another person, and reckless homicide is a Class D felony, right? But then, what they charged him with because of that situation with the new witness is manslaughter in the first degree. And notice right here, manslaughter with the first degree is a Class B felony. So felonies are normally classified A, B, C, D. Some may go E, but the lower you go down, the less time that can come with it, right? And so
Okay.
now we are charging him with manslaughter in the first degree, which is a person is guilty of manslaughter in the first degree with when they have the intent to cause serious physical injury to another person. So basically, what they were saying is that Woody Woody wasn't in a situation where he feared his life. Woody had the intent to cause this harm to Cockeye, right?
Right.
And because there's this witness who goes in, who basically says that Cockeye came into the gas station and said to her, that guy out there is trying to kill me. Is basically what he says, right?
Hmm.
And so they bring that up, and that's why they up the charges to manslaughter and first degree, which I think will bring cumulatively the total amount of time that he would potentially be eligible to stay in jail, like 50 years or so. Which is why Brandis kept saying he gonna die in prison.
No, 35. It wasn't 30.
No, that's 35, including the wanton endangerment.
Oh,
But then with
gotcha.
the other one, that boosted up even more. So to about
Yeah,
50
but
years.
she started saying that even before she knew
So
that
she was
it was
concerned about,
changing.
she was concerned about this man who's 70 years old, and then you tack on a 50-year.
I mean, I get it, but she was saying that he was going to die in prison way before she found out that these charges
Hmm.
were changing.
Hmm. All right. So ultimately, we get to the trial, right?
Well, no,
Ultimate,
before the trial, remember, Brenda says, no, 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 no. I need to go speak to Kimberly because
she
who is
does.
Kimberly? And I
Hmm.
need to find out what exactly happened. So she
Hmm.
does go to Kimberly. She actually, and in my head, I was like, why would you, couldn't you just called her into the office for her to come to the office? But she ended up going to the gas station
Well,
to
we don't
speak
know.
to her.
We don't know Kimberly's work schedule. She could be a single mom and need to be at
That's
work.
true.
We don't know
Okay.
her situation. Go ahead.
Anywho, she goes to the gas station and she goes inside and talks to Kimberly. And
Hmm.
Kimberly does say, yes, she is 1,000, not 1,000, but 100% sure that he said the guy in the car is going to shoot me or kill me, but that she
Hmm.
didn't take him seriously
Hmm.
because, he kind of laughed when he said it.
Hmm.
And when she said that, I was like, makes sense because if I'm the gas clerk and this guy tells me that, I would have been like, are you okay? Do you need me to call 911 or do you need me to do something? So the tone or the way he may have said it to her could have come across as maybe he was just joking, you know, and she didn't take him serious. She didn't think nothing else out of it.
Yeah, but then take that on the flip side. Why would he just randomly go in there and say that to a person? Maybe they were arguing in the
But
car
he
before
was
that.
drunk. Remember, we've already seen
We don't
this
know if he was drunk.
video.
We
We've
don't know if he was
already
drunk.
seen this video of the man in Walmart, and
He
you
didn't
can
look drunk to
tell
me.
in that video that he was tipsy.
No, he could have been. He could have been. We don't know. He could have had a medical condition that caused him to talk. He was just talking slow. He wasn't. He wasn't stumbling. He wasn't loud. He wasn't
I
belligerent.
get everything that you're saying, but I am putting myself in Kimberly's position. I am not Kimberly. Denise
Mhm,
is at that gas station right
mhm,
at this moment with Cockeye. And
mhm.
Cockeye is telling me this guy is going to shoot me. Again, I'm looking at Cockeye to see, how does Cockeye look? Maybe he was laughing it off. Maybe he was just, because again, you may not think that he was drunk or tipsy, but in that video, he did look a little tipsy, a little too happy.
Okay,
So,
but one thing Kimberly never said was that she thought he was drunk,
no, she didn't say that. I didn't say
right?
Kimberly said that.
I know, but that
Oh,
see you're saying that because you saw the
because
video
I've
and
known
you
the facts before.
right, but Kimberly
Right.
didn't say that he appeared drunk, which I think
No,
is
but she,
an important omission, right?
mhm.
That important omission tells me that she didn't that maybe Cockeye did not present himself as being drunk, as you
Well,
are
now
claiming.
I'm gonna say to you what you said before. We don't know because the episode is set to fit for an hour, so we technically don't know if she said that or not.
All right, true. All right, fine, whatever. But at the end of the day, she basically didn't say he was drunk. All right,
At the end of
so
the day, what she said was he did say that, but I didn't take him serious, which is what matters.
all right, so we get to the trial. We get to the trial, and the prosecutor stands up and says that,
No, before the trial starts, don't forget they dropped the charges.
"Oh, yeah, but that's not important. They
Yes,
dropped the
that is
charges.
important.
All right, they dropped the charges, but still, the
Which
man is.
charges did they drop?
I don't even remember
The
because the
wanton
man still
endangerment charges.
may die in prison at the end of the day. Okay, so
Per Brandis, yes.
yes, so they dropped some of the charges. Okay, fine. All right, so we get to the trial, and the prosecutor, and I thought the prosecutor did a beautiful job with this.
Mhm.
And is in the opening part that we hear, he says that Woody says to Michelle,
Mm.
the wife of the victim, as he laid down in the gravel, and he says, "I shot Rodney." Cold and calmly, right? And that put in the picture to set up the whole concept of this guy was not in a state of frantic about being fearing for his life. This guy walked around with a pistol in his pocket and was not afraid to use it. Period. Right? This wasn't a situation where he felt he had no choice but to use it. That's essentially how he set it up, right? And so the first witness that they call is the wife, right? The wife gets on the stand, and I felt bad for her. She actually
Yeah, me
looked kind of
too.
young too.
Yeah.
I felt
They're
bad
in their
for her.
40s. I
Right,
mean,
they are.
Cockeye was.
Um, and she tells the story, but what she does say is that um, Rodney never got drunk and mean. He was a good drunk, basically, right?
A happy drunk,
A happy drunk,
friendly drunk.
and then and that was in response to the prosecution's question, or the prosecutor's question: was he drunk and mean? Was he drunk and mean when he drank? Basically,
Mhm.
right? Now, why am I bringing it up? That's important, right? Because I don't. I think that was a bad question. That's not a question I would have asked in this scenario. Let me tell you why. Because what that is doing is that is opening the door for reputational evidence. So, in in the federal rules of evidence, there are ways in which you can prevent people to bring in a person's reputation, right, as evidence. Because what you don't want to present to the jury is that because a person acted a certain way one day, that inevitably they're going to act the same way another day, right?
Mhm.
But when you open the door, that means that the prosecution opened that door. When you open that door, then that allows the defendant to then bring in reputational evidence to refute what you're saying, right? So typically, as a lawyer, you really don't want that reputational evidence in unless it's required because it's an element of the 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 crime or it's an element of the defense, right? Self defense is reputation is not an element of self defense. You see what I'm saying? Now,
Hmm.
the defendant definitely will want reputation evidence and for the victim, because what they want to be able to show is that this person essentially has a propensity to act a certain way when they're drinking in this particular instance. But because the prosecution opened the door, that allowed Brandis then to come back and say to the wife, what does she say?
About the charges. Apparently, she had pressed charges on him once when he
Exactly.
was drunk because he
Hmm.
shoved her on the bed.
Hmm.
And there apparently was another instance where he shoved his own mom against the wall.
Hmm.
And so
So
that was like boom.
that was like, bruh, he
Yeah.
he 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 ain't no happy drunk. He can
No.
get angry and
He can
mean
get
if
physical,
if,
yeah.
if he can shut down the wife and shove her down and his own mama.
Which
Then
technically is what he allegedly did with Woody, right? Because he grabbed
exactly,
him out of the truck, he
exactly,
pushed them against the truck, you
exactly,
know.
exactly. Now, then there was I don't even know how this was brought in, honestly, and
The
this is
guy,
part
right?
the trooper. So,
Yes.
so they bring in a state trooper who was, and let's put this clear. The state trooper was not involved in the crime. I mean, or even investigating the crime. He was
Nope.
he didn't was called to the scene. Just some random trooper who lives in the neighborhood, right?
Right. He's a neighbor, just a
Exactly.
neighbor.
And the prosecution called him. I don't know why they allowed this, but maybe there are state rules are a little different than federal rules. But basically, they bring in this trooper to basically say, does Rodney did Rodney have a reputation of being violent? The guy says no. And then he was like, well, what about Elwood, which is Woody, the
Woody.
defendant? Does he have a reputation of being violent? And he was like, yeah, he has a reputation of being a hothead. And when he says that, the wife starts bawling in the
Mhm.
courtroom and start hyperventilating. And basically, Brandis was like, what's going on, honey? I
Yeah,
love the
but
way she
before
talked.
that, when the trooper left the stand, did you see
He
how
tapped her. He tapped the prosecutor like, bro, we got this.
I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, that was a little shady for me.
Like what?
Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I don't know how in the world that was brought in. But again, we only see so much. We don't know if there was some kind of motion eliminated in regards to this testimony or not.
It's so funny because I
Um,
wrote his name and I put a question mark because I was like, what was the purpose of bringing this man in?
to
Like,
to to show that Woody is not as innocent as he claimed he is. But I don't know how that was brought in. But basically, yeah. So the trooper testifies that basically Woody is an asshole and
mhm,
evil and disrespectful. All
yep.
right. So Woody does not call any witnesses. Brandis does. I think she does a try. She does what she can for cross examination. And what she said is that because he's not testifying, he been Woody, in regards to his self defense, that the only way that she can really make this case work is to change the prosecution witnesses to her witnesses, right?
Mhm.
And she does what she needs to do with that. But ultimately, the jury disagrees.
Yeah.
And so they find him guilty of two charges, right?
They find him guilty of reckless homicide and resisting
Resisting
arrest.
arrest, right? And so the wife started bawling down again because basically the wife says, I've been with this man more than I've been my own mama,
Yeah. 50
right?
something years,
Yeah,
51 or 57.
right. And so the jury finds him guilty. And so then Branda's job is now to try to basically put her client at the mercy of the court, at the mercy of
Mhm.
the jury, to try to get the least amount of time as possible so he won't die in prison, right?
Yeah.
And
Because
what do
that's
you
all
think
she's
about
worried about. He's gonna die in prison.
and what do you think about what she did there?
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, she gives her speech.
It didn't do nothing to me. So if I was the if I was in the jury, I would be like, okay, he's guilty. I mean,
All right. So ultimately, the jury determined that they're only going to give him a year. versus the 10 years and potentially 15 years. So
Brandy,
he
he
won't
ain't gonna
die.
die in prison.
He ain't gonna die in prison. All right. So the man is convicted and he serves a year in prison. But
No,
yeah,
but
so
I don't know if you
I
know
mean
the
in jail.
update. Yeah, okay.
I
Because you
tried to
know that,
look. Go ahead.
I found this as an update. They apparently spoke to Brandes,
Hmm.
and when he originally got arrested, he spent 5 months in jail because they were trying to come up with the money for the bond and whatnot.
So
So
he
they
technically only
counted.
served
Right. So he
time
technically was
served,
only going
sometime
to
served
serve, yep. And he
7 months.
was serving it in the jail, not prison,
Yeah, because it's
because
less
he
than a
didn't
year.
get
This is
that.
a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he ain't.
So he was getting released in September 2021.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the update. All right. So hopefully he's still alive and kicking. And,
Yes.
um, you know,
And I truly hope his daughters started talking back to him, because you
oh,
could tell that that affected him.
yeah. I, honestly, that didn't. I really didn't care. I don't even know why that was in the episode because, quite frankly, he didn't. They didn't even make it clear that they stopped talking to him because of this situation. It sounded like they stopped talking to him for a while.
I can't remember. Honestly,
Right?
I can't remember.
I didn't get that it was this situation that caused him to stop
But I
talking.
still hope that the daughters came
Yeah, I really don't
around
care.
and,
Not my personal business, but
oh my gosh.
yes, maybe so. I hope everything works out for them.
And that the
But
neighbors, start talking back to him, because you could tell
nah.
that affected him too.
I mean, he killed the
I
man.
know. I know.
I mean, this wasn't like it wasn't. He murdered him.
Yeah.
The hell, it's self defense or not? The man is gone. What
It
about the
is, yeah.
wife?
I
Hell.
know.
All
Still.
right. So that was episode 64. Episode 64, best friend killing or self defense, accused, guilty or innocent. That is a show that is on A&E.
Mhm.
Glad to have. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna say glad, but glad that Denise was able to come in and help talk about the episode. So Denise, boom, boom, boom. There you go. Make sure that you check us out
A
on
pleasure.
Facebook. Hmm. Facebook, Peeps Creek Cafe. You can contact us on IG, Twitter, and Twitch at Peeps Creek. YouTube, the videos are there at Peeps Creek Podcast right there. Our website, www.peepscreek.com. Send us an email. You have comments on the episode, cafe@peepscreek.com. And you can get all of our links for everything that we do here at the podcast right there. And so I want to thank Denise for coming out once again on episode 64. Anything you want to say before we depart?
No, I truly enjoy doing these episodes. I think we had an awesome time when we did the first season, so I'm glad to be here for the second season.
Now that you came around and realized that, go ahead.
I don't think you want to go there.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
So I'm just glad to be doing this again. Not necessarily glad to be here with you, but I'm glad to be doing this again.
All right, well, there you go. All right. Until next time, make sure that you continue to drink, listen, and converse. Peace and love.